From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts.
We already have the democracy of our dreams. We just have to uncover the corruption off of it.
Welcome to Community Catalysts. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman. If you serve your community in any leadership role, you know the work asks a lot of you. The responsibility is real, expectations are high, and the path forward is rarely simple. This podcast is for you. It's a place to slow down and open up, to gain new perspectives, to learn alongside others who carry similar responsibilities, and to be reminded that you are not alone in the work. Let this be your conversation. Listen for insights that speak to your community and for guidance that helps you shape what comes next. My guest today is Neil Thanedar, Executive Director of the Michigan Campaign Finance Network. Neil leads a nonprofit organization focused on bringing transparency to how money influences politics. Through investigative research and data analysis, his work helps community understand who is funding political activity in a state and how that specifically shapes public decision-making, issues that go directly to trust, accountability, and confidence in local governance. Neil Thanedar, welcome to Community Catalysts.
Thanks for having me.
So, Neil, let's start with the Michigan Campaign Finance Network. What exactly is the organization's mission, and what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
So the core of the work is investigative journalism. And so if right now, the last 3 months, we focused heavily on earmarks. Every year, a budget is passed in the state of Michigan, billions of dollars. A lot of that money goes to specific organizations, right? So it might say $20 million that's supposed to go to a specific organization in a specific city. That grant is then not tracked or followed in any way, right? And so if that goes to an incubator that's supposed to support startups, but then never funds startups, we don't hear about it until an organization like ours does some of that research. And we've seen many other cases like this where these earmarks have been going to people who are actually donating directly to both parties and actually getting using these political contributions to make personal gains. And so by breaking these types of stories, we'll see in the last 3 months, actually a major earmark bill was passed in Michigan, where now any of these earmarks have to be published online on a public access website for 45 days before they can be passed into law. And so a lot of the work that we do in this investigative journalism is focusing on key stories in order to gain the kind of public's trust and pressure to get politicians to pass bills that we all need and will actually save us money in the long run.
So help me understand this. This is looking at the bills themselves, at the promises that are made in the bills, and your follow-up is, are those promises being kept?
So we'd follow the money either from where the bills are sending money, and we might follow the money all the way back to who passed those bills, who gave those individuals or their leadership PACs money, right? And so how are those people connected? Where does the personal gain happen there, right? And actually, by publishing that information, sometimes you'll basically pressure these politicians either to pass legislation to make sure that it would never happen again, or we could actually prevent know that there's actually transparency on these bills. It could actually in itself prevent future politicians from even trying to do something like this.
So you're kind of looking at all the ways that public money gets spent, and you're going back to this question of, well, why was the decision made to spend it in that way in the first place? And was it actually spent for the intended purpose? You have to look at it from two different angles.
Exactly, right. So there's the who benefits angle, and then why did our money go to that place, right? And some of these bills are, right? So if you dig into many of these cases, you can see maybe a $500,000 here or there goes to some of these great nonprofits that are doing work in any given city, right? And so there are many bills where you could actually say, hey, those earmarks are good and they will survive a 45-day waiting period, right? That'll be fine. The problem is that in past years, earmarks have been added at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night, and then these bills are getting passed at 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, right? After months, and these issues are usually there's a government shutdown that's looming, right? And it's like, you have to sign the bill. And so actually building these kind of 45-day waiting periods can be the difference between hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money being spent correctly or not. And that's just one example of a bill that we'd look to pass. The next one that we're really focused on is Freedom of Information Act, right? So there are Michigan and Massachusetts, so the only two states that actually currently exempt their governor and state legislature from FOIA. But there is actually currently a 2026 ballot initiative in Massachusetts to change that. And so Massachusetts is going to, theoretically, I would imagine if that gets on the ballot, will pass pretty easily in Massachusetts. So Michigan could be the last state standing on FOIA exemptions. And so I would love to see FOIA exemptions finally be fixed. And so we wrote an editorial about that in the last month. And so the fight continues on what we want to see in transparency in Michigan politics.
So I understand the concept. I think the adage is that sunshine is the greatest disinfectant, right? We're trying to illuminate what's going on so we understand what exactly is. But can I ask you, is the fact that money moves this way, is that necessarily bad? Is there an argument to be made that just the political process works at the last minute, it works under pressure, and there are trade-offs that are going on and bargains being struck, and somehow this is the grease that makes things move in a larger way?
I think there's plenty of things that can get done in 45 days, right? I think the good, strong earmarks will still fully pass a 45-day waiting period. It's also that the bill's not going to get passed till October 1st every year anyways. And so we know that's going to happen. Like, we know now that the 2026 budget is going to be on it was going to be pressured on October 1st. And so if we say, hey, we just made August 15th, make sure you get all of your earmarks in by August 15th, it is not too much for us to ask. I think what it'll do, though, is it'll allow the good earmarks to clear while the bad earmarks don't, which is exactly the system that we need. And so I think those are the types of kind of win-win kind of systems that we're always trying to find. I think the Freedom of Information Act, I think, is a similar case where I think governments sometimes will say, oh, it's a burden to always answer all of these requests, right? The legislature could fund that, right? There could be ways where, it's whatever the cost of these requests can be covered. But I think there's, for any number of reasons, like, these governments do all kinds of menial administrative tasks for themselves at any given time. Being able to, send the records that they already have to the public, I think is a reasonable request that every other state does. And so I think we should be able to fight for those things. And so I think that's been the job for me for the last 2 years.
You haven't used the term, but could I ask you to explain the concept of dark money and what that means in this context?
Right now, what we're seeing is that the vast majority of money being spent in politics is being spent indirectly, right? And so the kind of, in 20, 30, 40 years ago, the money that if a congressman raised $100,000, that was the vast majority of the money that was being spent in that race. Now the congressman might spend $1 million, and then outside groups that are not named will spend another $10 million in support or against them. That $10 million is the dark money, is not tracked necessarily, because it might be spent by a nonprofit who's been donated by another nonprofit who doesn't have to disclose their donors. That not having to disclose the donors is a key part of what makes it dark money. And what we're increasingly seeing is that the dark money is just dwarfing what the direct money is being spent. And that, I think, that changes the dynamic to where, unless you are in some ways aligned with that dark money, you're not able to run for some of these large races. A lot of these federal races now are, $10+ million of indirect spending in every race, and even the seats that are close, or maybe it can be even up to 100 million plus in some of these congressional races. And so that's a lot of the dark money that we're fighting. I think some of the things are requiring disclosures. So it's saying that even if the money is being spent by a PAC or a nonprofit, it still should be disclosed. And then something that's being happened in Michigan right now is the idea of, government contractors should not be able to lobby the regulators or the politicians who are going to pass bills in favor against them. Those are the other ways that we can block some of this influence and money. But other than that, I think the other way to block dark money without governments banning it or requiring disclosure is nonprofits like MCFN being able to do the research, and we might be able to figure out independently how that money is being spent. One example of that is utilities like DT is one of our major utilities around here, and Consumers Energy. The politicians might not disclose how the money got to them, but the utility might actually disclose through their own spending where the money went. And so sometimes you might actually not be able to track the political spending from the political side of it, right, from the politician's angle, but you can actually follow the spending by the corporation. And if the corporation is spending money to lobby in a certain way, they often will disclose it through their own records. And so one way that nonprofits will find that information is by digging into corporate records and figuring out where the corporate money is going, and sometimes following that money into politics versus finding the money through politics itself.
I want you to talk a little bit about your background and
Sure.
how you got to do this kind of work in the first place, because I understand you didn't start out in government work to begin with.
No. So I grew up when I was a kid, I always watched politics and was fascinated by it. But I went to school, University of Michigan, molecular biology and business degrees. I started 3 lab startups over a 15-year period. And that was a big part of my life. I raised millions of dollars, moved to San Francisco, went through Y Combinator, and had this whole startup experience.
That's a big deal. I mean, you're saying it fast, but that's a big deal to go through Y Combinator. And you led 3 startups?
3 startups in 15 years, right? And we're co-founded, and we've seen good success with all 3. 2 of them are still running and still will hope to see exits. One is fully exited now.
So wait, just first off, congratulations on that. I mean,
Thank you.
That's a major success story, or 3 major success stories right there.
Thank you. And I think that's it was a big part of my life. It's kind of how I say it now, because I think at the end of last year, I was thinking about, do I do kind of lab startup number 4, or is there something that I always wanted to do, like politics, and chase my highest meaning and purpose now? And I think I'd always been kind of saying, oh, after one more startup, then I'll go do this thing that I really want to do. And I think a big part of that to me was this idea of what a lot of other people say about politics. Oh, I can't run for something now. I'm not ready yet. I don't have time. My kids are young. There's all these excuses. It's easy to say that. And I eventually I had been writing for many years about this idea that became positive politics. And as I was writing it, it got deeper and deeper into it. I said, well, if I'm going to tell people this story, if I'm going to write a book that says you should get into politics and go for it, I should be doing that too. And so I just jumped in. I found MCFN January 25 and have really just jumped right in, applied, got elected, have had a great year plus working here. And then I think I love this part of the process. And then I've also really tried to figure out what is next for politics. And I keep calling this idea positive politics, because I think you see something that a lot of the people want, are waiting for, is a new type of politics, a different way to get into politics. One, a way to be more positive, but also a way to, a positive in the sense of kind of being nice, right? But also getting things done in a positive some way. I think that combination of 2 things really is what there's a hunger for that right now. And
okay,
so
wait, I'm going to interrupt you, because I understand that, and I read the book Startup, I listened to the podcast on Startup. I understand that startups, you're supposed to have a really good elevator speech. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the elevator speech for positive politics?
You don't have to run for something to get into politics. You can start with activism, find your issue, go get work done, start with it on a weekend, see what you can get done, write a bill, write a blog post about a bill, send it to your local politician. You'd be amazed at what you can get done in politics in a week, a month, a year, if you just get started now.
And that's a message that you especially want to make sure who hears.
Ambitious optimists, right? And so a lot of them are in startups already, right? It's startup founders are great ambitious optimists, but there's ambitious optimists everywhere. I think there are great professionals everywhere who are either doing some of that in their spare time, right? They're finding in volunteering or in part-time work, are finding a way to find that impact. But I might encourage you to do more of that, to get even deeper into politics, to find a specific issue, a specific bill, and run with it. And do the things where if you were in a healthcare startup and you wanted to focus on healthcare, pick a healthcare bill and run with it. You might find that you don't have to start at the bottom in politics. You can use all of your skills to jump way ahead and get things done.
Neil, people who work in the area of campaign finance and dark money and politics in general, there's a lot of cynicism, a lot of negativity in there. You don't sound cynical and you don't sound negative.
I think anti-corruption and positive politics can go well together. I think you do have to, I think even like fighting bad things is a part of positive politics for sure. But I think fundamentally there's a lot of, we're actually like, we already have the democracy of our dreams. We just have to like uncover the corruption off of it, right? It's like, I think it's more of like cleaning it off versus kind of I don't think we need to reinvent it or like I'm not in that kind of a sense. I think that the American system, the American dream, I think the biggest factor is making sure that we can reclaim it and bring it back and make it possible for as many people and democratize the American dream for as many people as we can. Those things can and will be done through politics in many ways. We have to prove that positive politics can be done by kind of getting these wins, right? Like focusing on key issues, getting bills passed. A lot of these are going to be non-controversial, non-partisan, right? Like I think often focus. I talk about this in the book. We often focus on these big budget bills or the things that get very controversial and non-partisan or bipartisan, but the vast majority of these bills are actually non-controversial. Like the bills you don't hear about are actually the non-controversial ones, and there might be 10 plus bills every day, but it's that one controversial bill every month or every year that is all over the news. And so a lot of actually figuring out politics is kind of helping these ambitious optimists focus on the specific issue or the specific bill instead of focusing on the next presidential election or whatever's on TV.
Is MCFN focused primarily at the state level, or do you come down to cities, towns, counties, school boards, and the like?
So it's a lot of cities as well. We focus on the Detroit mayor's race. So 2025 was a big local year for Detroit and Flint and some other cities. 26 is going to be much more state focused, and so it does go back and forth. But yes, we have a mandate to do both. There's a lot organizations like ProPublica Open Secrets do a great job at the national level, but there aren't really any organizations that kind of focus specifically on some of these cities.
If you're speaking directly to mayors and council members and school board members and county supervisors, say just at that level, what's the message that you most want to get to them about their responsibility or accountability in a political environment that has dark money influencing it and so many pressures trying to draw resources out of it?
Yeah, I think for both reasons, both from the anti-corruption and the positive politics, being as efficient with the money as possible is incredibly important. I think that matters for both Democrats and Republicans. And I think both parties, frankly, have done a poor job of solving that, spending the money wisely, right? And especially like the trust that the money is being spent wisely. And so I think especially at the local level, these mayor, city council members, being able to prove that the money is being spent wisely and that in a positive sum way I think that's a big part of positive politics is this, the positive sum politics earns the politicians the right to do more work, right? It's like there's this positive feedback loop that should happen where every time you do a positive sum action in politics, it actually the population sees the benefit and it earns you the right. It's the social contract being reinforced instead of frayed, right? And so every time you do it right, the social contract gets stronger. Every time you do it wrong, it starts to unwind. And so I think that especially at the local level, it's like your job is kind of on a day-to-day basis. Like what did we do today to make like life better for people in the community? And it's just, politics is just, I think a lot of it is just the sum of all those actions.
You said the work of MCFN is the work of investigative journalism. I'm wondering, how do people follow that work? Where will they find it? How do they keep tabs of the efforts that you're making going forward?
Yep. So mcfn.org is where we publish our independent research. We also partner with local and state news organizations like Detroit News, Bridge Magazine in the state. And so we did last year, it was 7 investigations on mcfn.org, another 27 media partnerships. So we had a good year last year, trying to do a lot of the same this year. And then one big thing we're adding this year is also data projects. So we're doing alerts where kind of you get an email alert with the top expenditures and contributions in the state every day. And so we're building a system where kind of every morning at 9:30 a.m. you get this email. I'm building this myself right now. I have a great support of the people who built this. Michigan Data Consulting is a student group at the University of Michigan who helped us pro bono as a student group of a university as students all last semester to help us build this. And so we're creating this alert system that we're now launching so that you can basically track every big expenditure in Michigan politics. We also want to then build on top of that a system to rank the kind of overall spending, like whether it's quarterly or annually, be able to kind of rank who are the top PACs or the top politicians spending money in the state. And so some of those data projects hopefully are ways also that we can empower citizens to do some of their own research too. And so between the investigative journalism and these data projects, those are the kind of 2 big focuses for us this year.
I have a question for you that usually we ask just of entrepreneurs, but what does scale look like for MCFN? What do you grow into over time, or are you already there?
It's pretty. I think I'd love to see there be some sort of national network of there should be an Ohio campaign finance network or something like that. Like if there's every state had one of these. Illinois has Illinois Sunshine. There's other states that have something like this, but I think it'd be cool to have kind of every state have something like this. And then I'd like to figure out also creating a succession plan. So kind of whoever does this after me, the next executive director passes on. There's been 5 I'm the 5th executive director in kind of 20 plus years. And so trying to figure out kind of how to pass that on, I think would also be incredibly important.
I was going to ask you whether there's a network of similar missioned organizations in states around the country. And the question is, if they're in any other state and there isn't an MCFN equivalent organization for them to directly tap in, what's the first thing they should do to understand the campaign finance ecosystem where they are? Where do they even begin to look?
I still like what ProPublica and Open Secrets does at a national level. I think you can also use those tools to start digging into your state. So a lot of the state level contributions also go through those websites. And so if you want to start studying where dark money is going at some of these big levels, those organizations do a great job of it. ProPublica also does great investigative journalism, and they even have podcasts and events and things. And so there are ways to actually sign up for learning through organizations like ProPublica. So that's one place I would go.
Clearly, this doesn't seem overwhelming to you, but I have to say, as someone who's listening to this and thinking, what would I do? I live in the state of Arizona, and I don't know if we have a similar kind of organization, but it definitely seems overwhelming for an individual to try to understand what the significance is of dark money in their own community. I don't doubt that it exists. But how does someone even know where to even begin to figure this out? It seems immense.
The other place, it often has a few reporters in any given state that are. It's actually one of the top reporters in the state of Michigan now. Craig Mauger used to be the executive director of MCFN, and now he's an investigative journalist at Detroit News. And he's still running this beat and still kind of chasing a lot of these dark money stories. If it's not an organization like MCFN, it's often they're reporters. It's some specific reporters at some specific news organizations. So it's usually your top newspapers in the state. Some of there are, but it's these these individuals care so much, and they make it their beat and they make it their responsibility to chase these stories. often that's like, if you checked in Arizona, I would bet you that that's where the last five stories of corruption were broken by one of these local journalists who is doing this work. So the other thing to do is support your local journalists. I think that is a very underrated source of fighting back on these problems.
Couldn't agree with that more. I have a couple of final questions I want to ask you about here. And it kind of seems like if I'm looking for the foundation of all the work that you're doing, that this has to do, I think the word is trust. Like, why should the public trust the political process?
Mhm.
And how can we trust a process that has a dynamic going on of money that is influencing things and controlling things? And as you said earlier, is influencing even who the candidates are in the first place, who can make it through a primary. And
Mhm.
so I really want to put this question to you, firmly, which is it trust? Is that the thing that you're most focused on? What is the core value that MCFN is most focused on? And what is the end benefit that we hope to realize as a result of this work?
Yes, so I think it's the transparency leads to trust. And I think that trust earns you the right to do more good work, right? I think politics and government have, that's, I think, what keeps me so fundamentally positive about politics is this idea that the tools, the resources, the democracy is all there. We have to clean it up and we have to make it run as intended. But if we really wanted to make the biggest impact on education and healthcare and jobs and housing and all these fundamentals that really make the American dream, those things all come from politics. Politics is a way to solve the world's biggest problems, and so I want to encourage people to solve those problems, and also encourage the right to do that work. Right? Is like politics is not like is it can't be done by force over long periods of time. Right? It's like you have to win elections. You still have to win by popular opinion, and we often feel like that popular opinion comes down to the lesser of two evils, right? And I think that takes our politics into a more and more negative place. And I just think the fundamental solution is to focus on the positive sum fundamental issues, fight for those fundamental issues repeatedly, keep getting those smaller and smaller and bigger wins, and build up that momentum to where you earn the right to do bigger and bigger positive things in politics.
Neil, the work of campaign finance reform is clearly long haul work, and it rarely comes with quick wins or easy validation. I'm curious to ask you personally, when the challenges feel heavy and progress feels slow, what sustains your sense of purpose and keeps you showing up with energy rather than frustration or cynicism?
A lot of it comes from the startup world where you're expected to take 5 to 10 years on an idea, good or bad. And that, I think, if you take that start mentality to politics, you'd find that you can have losses over a 1, 2, 3 year period, and then 5, 10, 20 years later, look at and you've changed the whole world, right? And so I think there are amazing examples of this from we had talked about the book has a great example of marriage equality and activism around marriage equality that first changed public perception from 20 something percent of people supporting to close to 70% support, and then how the politics changed around that and how organizations built things around that, right? And so there are these opportunities to do this great work, and change the world. And so I think sometimes you can't zoom in on any individual part of that chart, right? Because there are parts of that chart where it starts going down, right? And there are negative spots of that chart. But if you zoom out of that chart in a 20, 30, 40 year period, the activists won, and marriage equality is the law of the land. And so I think in some of these cases, being able to figure out the way to zoom out, I think is something I found in startups. And it's like, hey, in 10 years, this will all be fine. It's kind of, it's something that I really lean on. And I had a friend and we were talking and I was like, oh, it's just going to take like 1 10 year sprint on positive politics. And he's like, no one talks about 10 years as a sprint. But you, I was like, yeah, like when I mean sprint, I mean, like, if we just like focus in the same direction for 10 years, like, let's think about what can get done. And that's what I believe. I was like, I think if I can kind of really focus next 10 plus years on positive politics, I really think it could change all of American politics, and I'd love to see where we get. And 2025 was really just year one of that. November 25, we launched the book Positive Politics. This year, looking to add a hackathon and accelerator to really use some more of those startup strategies to show what can be done in a summer or even a weekend. In like, can you spend 48 hours in politics and get something done in a hackathon? That's those types of things. The Y Combinator for politics that I've always talked about. Like, can you take a 12-week program and kind of sprint people through and have them pitch political ideas, right? Something concrete in 12 weeks in a YC format where the demo day happens and you've got hundreds of people in the audience and the best projects get funded in hours or days, right? Like that YC for politics could and should be the positive politics accelerator. And so I'm looking to do the first tests of the hackathon, the accelerator this year in Michigan. And if they work, then I think, a lot of work to do the next 10 plus years.
There's a real interesting leadership model that I'm taking from what you just said, which is that the way you said it, leadership is about vision and driving towards something big, and don't sweat the tactical stuff that you have to overcome along the way.
Exactly. And I think that I do still lock in every day to like, what's the most important thing I can do today? And then I try to get it done every day. Right. So there's still a day-to-day grind of it. Writing a book, it's like 1,000 words a week. And how do you break that down to every day? And that adds up eventually to a 40,000 word book, right? That's in stores. But there are ways to build up to those long visions, but zooming out, I think, is still underrated, and kind of thinking in those decade plus timelines. If you do that in politics, amazing things could happen.
Neil, I'll put a link in the program notes for the podcast, but where can people get your book?
So positivepoliticsbook.com is my website. It's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy books. This month, I'm going to be recording the audiobook, so give it about 3 months for an audiobook to be available, but ebook, paperback, and hardcover are already in stores. And yes, spent over a year writing about the why and the how of getting into politics, and especially focused on not just running for something, but starting with activism, finding your issues, and taking direct action before you run for something so that you can build that experience and prove that you can get things done in politics right away.
Neil Thanedar, it's been great talking to you. I applaud your vision and I love your energy, and I thank you so much for all the insights. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Yes, thanks for having me, and I love your questions.
My thanks again to Neil Thanedar of the Michigan Campaign Finance Network. You know, listening to Neil, I'm struck by his assertion that campaign finance transparency is not merely a technical exercise, it's a necessary foundation of civic trust. His work is a reminder that understanding how influence operates in public life isn't about cynicism or accusation. It's about creating the conditions for accountability, confidence, and healthier community decision-making. Hey, if this conversation sparked an idea, raised a question, or left you wondering, I'd love to hear about it. You're welcome to call me at 602-688-2724 and leave a short message. Tell me what you're noticing or what you'd like to hear explored next. I listen to every message, and your reflections help shape future episodes. And if you'd be open to sharing hard-earned lessons from your own leadership journey, I invite you to apply to be a guest. You'll find the podcast guest link in the show notes. Your story may help another leader see their own work more clearly. Community Catalysts is edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.